I think it's time we have a serious conversation about the current state of this football club. You're seeing the title on screen. Clearlake are the problem at Chelsea Football Club. And today, I'm going to go through step by step exactly why Chelsea's issues are greater than any manager or any new signing coming here fixing things overnight when the entire environment, when the whole institution is not working. And the first problem is Clearlake, because Clearlake have created this current environment we find ourselves in. Yeah? The biggest mistake these guys made was thinking that they had the smarts pro, thinking that they could condense 5 years worth of footballing projects into 1 year. They're doing up multi-networks. Yeah, they're doing up massive grand recruitment strategies that you've never seen before. They're rushing the process, bringing in entire new squads when the season's still going through. Overnight, they sacked anyone that had any ties to Chelsea Football Club. Not only were all the old players replaced and dashed out the window, but they replaced the coaches, they replaced the staff, the cafeteria lady, the groundsman. They replaced the institutional knowledge we had. The guys who founded Cobham, Neil Bath, Jim Fraser, they decided that anyone that had any ties to Chelsea Football Club was part of the problem and that they were the new source. They were the new brains. They're the future. They know what they're doing. And it looks so laughable right now. Yeah, it looks kind of embarrassing right now that we find ourselves in the same state. We still can't get off the platform. We're stuck in this Groundhog Day motion of going nowhere over the last 4 years now. It's embarrassing and it's an indictment of the environment that they've created at this football club, yeah? I'm sorry, don't be getting gas over winning the Conference League. It would be embarrassing if we never won that, considering how weak every team was compared to us. And we won the Club World Cup in spite of you. That was due to Enzo Maresca's tactical brilliance against Paris Saint-Germain. The issue that these lot have created is that when you're condensing too much footballing projects so soon, so quickly, overnight, it creates long-term consequences the moment your plan isn't coming to fruition, because plans don't work on a linear level. Just because you do part A and part B doesn't mean that part C is guaranteed. In a sport that depends on like human nature, things can disrupt the plan just like that. What if an injury happens to the star guy you bought? Now all your tactics and plans are messed up. What if that new signing you bought wasn't good enough? What if you miss out on the guy that you thought could take the project to the next level? There's so many examples of things that disrupt, this linear curve to improvement. So you exasperate things when you're now trying to improve 5 different things all at once. The priority should have forever remained getting the first team right and building your philosophy around what the club is supposed to be now, medium term, and long term. But when these plans don't work, when these managers don't work, you're constantly going back to route 1 yet again, which means everything gets reset, new tactics have to get learned, nothing gets built off from the season prior. You're almost restarting things afresh again. And this is the environment that does not lead towards success. It is not conducive towards success. It's this mismanagement that has left us in this situation. You undermine the vision, and I think this is perfectly expressed by the recent shocking departure of Enzo Maresca. Maresca was not sacked from Chelsea. Maresca left on his own terms. He realized this is a sinking ship. He realized whatever was promised to him the moment he was first hired was a fugazi, was all cap, was all lies. These guys aren't serious. These guys don't know what they're talking about. So often, managers under this ownership are constantly undermined. They have to do the impossible job of not only bringing stability to all the mess and chaos around them, but also improving the players, also getting these guys to compete. Maresca was the first guy to ride the first dreaded year. And you would think after going through everything he did last season and even getting silverware for us as well, 2 times, that he'd have more of a say, he'd be listened to a lot more often, considering this guy was part of the grand master plan to unite the entire Chelsea umbrella, the academy, the first team, the network clubs, to follow this positional play grand plan. Now the guy that you hired to kickstart that revolution now is out the door. And all you're going to do now is bring fear and instability now to the players who have been working under him, training a certain way. that now just showed certain signs that they can start competing for honors in the big games, now it's back to square one again. Now it's about learning new ideas from a new manager. It's about learning new rhythms, new tweaks, new language. That stability that Maresca had brought, that stability he gave us in the big games, when it came to competing, is out the door right now. And it all came because you don't want to add a degree of flexibility behind this model. You aren't all the geniuses. You're not flawless. Most of you guys have less than a tenth of the football experience that guys like Maresca, Pochettino, and many others before them have had in this game. How are you not going to unite alongside the manager that's supposed to kickstart this brand new look project at Chelsea? Instead, you're micromanaging him. Instead, you're questioning why he's not using this sub or starting this player. Instead, you're trying to put influence and pressure on his decision making. Weaker managers, weaker characters, weaker men bow down to that type of influence, yeah? But the type of manager it seems that we want is that a contradiction to the environment he's working at? Because no serious pro or manager would accept those type of working conditions. And now you look like fools when the manager leaves on his own terms. The fans look at you with even more scrutiny. The players now don't trust where they're at. The commercial side, the sponsors, the activities. Why would he put your money into Chelsea when you don't know what Chelsea is going to be like a few months later? It's too bipolar, yeah? There's no unity. And it's so self-destructive that we continue to create these conditions that leads to our own disaster. The guy left with 3.5 years left on his deal. He left not even receiving the full compensation package. He was desperate to leave. In the end, creating this club environment where managers feel kind of powerless, don't really have full say and control. They're told what to do by the specialist coach, the medical team, the directors, the ownership. In the end, it gets too impossible to work in such rigid constraints. And let's not forget this, bro. These board members thought they were hiring yes men, yeah? In Pochettino's and Maresca's. Saying yes got them through the door, where these guys were no bums. And don't forget this, all the top guys they looked at like Nagelsmann, Enrique, Flick, and many others rejected them at the door and said, no, I do not accept working under these constraints. It got to a point where Maresca feels like he's being micromanaged to ensure that players are retaining high market value, and that's why they justify their inclusion in lineups instead of their merit and what they're doing in the training sessions. And this leads to the next key point, and that's Chelsea's recruitment model. It's too bloated, it's too unfocused. It's too much. You know, you're buying players for a network club that we don't need in the current development of this team right now. You're buying so many players for the first team. You're buying them for the academy. You're taking advantage of the fact that you have pure profit now to spend. There's no proper debts holding you back. And it's created this unfocused mess that we're seeing right now that isn't actually leading anyone towards any type of success. The idea of buying talent for the future, it's a grand one, it's a nice one, but it's not a realistic one. We saw it after the first year and a half that, you know what, to support the youth, to promote the youth that you have, to build around the top talents you're going for, you need to have a blend of experience and ready-made players for right now. You can't have an entire team full of kids, depth full of kids, which we have this season, where the sub-bench is the youngest sub-bench I've ever seen at Chelsea, probably since Lampard took over. And we had a transfer ban during that season. But to start with things, I want to discuss the story behind Chelsea's windows. You can paint a picture of the transfer mess we found ourselves in, you know? The first big window of spending, 22-23 season, is Bowley acting as the sporting director because we have no structure. It's him and Thomas Tuchel. They don't have that unity together, and they were too impatient, splashing money to turn things around without the organized structures around. If there was a smart institution, they would have realized, you know what, we're going to hold things up for the first season, get our pieces into place first before spending some serious money. A few months later, we're now able to spend again now that Winsleys and Coes have been brought into the club, and we have the biggest January window in football history. Enzo Fernandez, Mikhailo Mudryk, Noni Madueke. These were players signed for a vision that wasn't quite defined. These were big players signed under the new directors. But it was quickly realized come the end of the season that without proper managers, and a manager who even had an idea on how to use the 35 plus players he had in his squad, That season was a write-off. And it was back now to a new window the following year where Poch came, but you're wasting most of your time now selling most of the duds that didn't work out and desperately moving on anyone that brings in some value. It could have led to situations, for example, where Cucurella could have gone to United or elsewhere, and we don't have a current left back for us right now. It sums up the lack of direction when too much is done all at once. There is no real master plan, it's just master improvisation. Through this mess, certain good players have been signed. If Nkunku never got his injury, we never would have signed Cole Palmer. The club also had some intelligence at least to know to overspend for Moises Caicedo, considering we could have bought him for nearly 30 million less. But now the problem was Poch had to find a way to build a team from strangers. And he got there near the end of the season. Something was forming before he decided to leave because he couldn't work under this management, and then Enzo Maresca came. There was some focus in the window, but there were also big misdirections with Renato Vegas. Joao Felix is bought in strange fashion, but still a growing sense that yet again there was a missed opportunity to get what the team really needed, which then led towards the latest window where we're forced in a situation to sell first team players so we can recruit new signings to add them as part of our Champions League registration. It was a window in which we became slaves to having to sell first before we could buy. It was a window in which we weren't even signing our top targets after all the money that we got from getting Champions League football and winning the Club World Cup. Hence why we were left with a team that was even younger than last season with even less experience, but the expectations grew bigger now that we became world champions. Like, are you seeing a picture behind the mess and how we keep finding ourselves in this situation? Talent is just not enough. A successful team is more than talent. It's about chemistry. It's about the variables that matter, the time it takes to adapt, the time it takes to find your confidence, to understand the system, to find a rhythm with your teammates, to get used to the new environment you're at, etc., etc., etc. And every single time you go into Windows buying half a subs bench or even more of talent to add to the team, you're just creating this cycle of reset. And I think this is where Maresca got so frustrated because it got to this crazy point where we had to sell players that was playing in a system over the last 2 years that had to be sold for profit for reasons being that we couldn't register new signings to make our Champions League squad. That's the financial mess we found ourselves in, where we're forced to have to play a trade. We're forced to have to be unfocused. And we've now reset the clock back, going 2 steps back to go 1 step forward by signing guys right in their infancy yet again to kickstart the cycle again. It's insane. How can you improve upon what you did last season when you're back to square one again? And what does it do for these guys in the current stage of their development? They're up against the pressure. There's no one there to protect them. The oldest seniors are guys like Tosin and Sanchez who are 27 years old. You leave them utterly exposed. And is it any wonder why we're seeing maybe this season why outside of Esteval, a lot of the youngsters seem to lack some confidence, some faith at times? Is it going to be no surprise why Maresca at the time might not feel as confident using them under such volatile conditions? And I think the biggest mistake comes down to this portfolio asset manager style thinking where you're spreading your bets across a wide variety of players. It's not focused enough, yeah? You're buying talents to fight it out for one position and you're happy with the one guy who can make it and you'll sell on the other guy who doesn't quite make it. But it's not that simple. Because you're under the conditions of the market, you're under the conditions of what clubs are willing to pay for your players. And every single window feels like a waste of time. The same old story of us asking for ridiculous fees that no one's going to pay for and then playing the transfer battle for like 2 weeks more than we should before we undersell at a value that we originally didn't want to undersell for. And then you're unintentionally forced in this loop and cycle that originally you had no plans for because all the guys that you signed at the start were supposed to be instantly ready to put Chelsea forward straight away because they were better than all the bums that you just got rid of, no? So then you're forced into this financial engineering rabbit hole and you're forced to waste time and be distracted by how to still abide by all these UEFA, FFP rules, Prem FFP rules, accounting book value profits. Essentially, we've built a system where selling becomes the only way to correct mistakes. We're constantly correcting mistakes from yesterday time and time again. And it feels like we prioritize the business, unfortunately, over the football for these reasons, because we're playing catch up against ourselves. It's not like we're even doing it on purpose. It's all unintentional consequences for getting the plan messed up right from the start. That advantage we once had where it was controversial, but even selling all your academy guys for 30, 40, 50 mil because that pure profit could be used to be reinvested into signing the better players for the future. But what did that really materialize into? Yeah, the big buys in Nkunku and Felix left for way less money and absolutely flopped and didn't add anything to us other than big wages. And this is the thing. You then have to spend all this time finding loan clubs for them, and all this limited time that you need to improve upon the team gets distracted on side missions. We constantly have transfer side missions to waste our time on every single window. And is it any surprise that the team just doesn't have that finishing touch that it desperately needs? Yeah? It wasn't like we invested the money into signing a top-class spine from the back in midfield to up front. Then you could even excuse the fact that a few signings on the wing or deeper might not be working for you. And things get even worse when new managers will come in with new ideas. So maybe some of the players that you originally had big plans for, because you're in control, yeah, buying these guys might not make that much sense for the new manager you're hiring. Then you're back to the drawing board yet again. We inadvertently create this environment where we are managing the spreadsheet compared to investing to win games and prioritize the team. And it goes on to my other pet peeve. The next point is Strasbourg and the multi-network model. And I guess for me, Strasbourg has felt like a distraction that came too soon, because maybe all that money we reinvested into buying a football team and then pumping money into them could have actually been used for our first team and our football club for now. Where would we be with those extra hundreds of millions invested into our club? Yes, we might be seeing small signs that we are getting players for the team right, but really it's Andre Santos who is still finding himself and still looks like another season away before showing what he's really about. Omega soon to come next season. We don't know what he's going to be like. And we've bought some talents and loaned some talents to them that aren't going to have strong type of title challenging, silverware challenging impacts for the next few years. But it feels like we're about to dramatically undermine Strasbourg now that we have to improvise yet again by finding a quick fix solution to Maresca departing. Liam Rosenior now is going to disrupt everything that's happened at Strasbourg. And you know what? A lot of you Chelsea fans at times were kind of undermining and laughing at Strasbourg fans for them being annoyed, insulted, and hurt by the fact that their club was literally seen as nothing but a feeder club to a more powerful team. Well, this entire incident really proves every fear and concern they had. The reality is, the grand plan wasn't to have Rosenior coming for the start of 2026. The grand plan was for Rosenior to come to the club in the future in the next few years. His work at Strasbourg was not finished. One good season, getting them to the Conference League, that is not enough. He needed more time, and that is now time where his development now has to get rushed. And knowing how the club works, yeah? Knowing how this football club works, there's a bigger chance that he ends up being the latest victim compared to being the next success the club is hoping for. Because how can you have the success when these directors and board members keep on proving that they're not really that aligned with the managers? They back themselves, they love to scheme, they love to get involved, all at the expense of making Chelsea United. And I think, what type of pressure is this going to put on the BlueCo Strasbourg board now, who they weren't planning to find a successor for Liam Rosenior? That's putting these guys under pressure big time. Big deceival. Yeah? A new guy to play new tactics, new this, new that. It's not simple. It's not easy. And now we're waiting for Strasbourg to find a replacement first before Rosenior comes in. But even based on reports, it seems like the Chelsea board just do not care about disrupting Strasbourg. Fair enough. But also, they probably don't care because they can't afford to care, because they're under pressure here. Some rumors inkling right now is that Strasbourg management are unhappy and some are thinking to leave because they can't work on this project. It's been a common criticism that's been revealed in many outlets over the summer windows and transfer windows in Germany and many countries of this Chelsea board being a bit too arrogant, not being that likable, not being the best negotiators, not being the best people to work with, not honoring things properly. And it leads on to the final big concern, and that is fan distrust. Now, one thing fans constantly hate, is when the goalposts keep on moving and keep on shifting. Let's not forget prime examples like the infamous club produce "Why did they decide to talk ish for no reason? There was no guns to their head" interview, where Winston Lee and Stewart said and told us all that we were 2 to 3 windows to finalizing the team and being ready. What's absolute cap? We are still nowhere near close to finalizing nothing, and we're more likely to be at least another 2 years away before finding actual real success in the field. It's insane. Let's not forget the infamous talks that the third season was supposed to be the title challenging season. Let's not forget how many times we're gaslit in summer windows of this target, this ambitious guy, that superstar, that we have no real will to sign because we're not going to pay them the money they deserve, and we're not going to overpay because of the pressures we find ourselves in, especially when it's forever getting contradicted by the wage bill. I mean, you cannot blame Chelsea fans for losing it right now. And this is the biggest mistake Clearlake made. They didn't understand the fan sentimentality we had for the old ownership. Now, I'm not going to sit here and eulogize these guys like they were God's gift and they got everything right, because my lord, they did not. And we're also quite fortunate, if we're keeping things humble, that a new ownership took over at the time we did, because the amount of sanctions and stuff we had coming our way, it could be dark times for us right now. One thing that made fans forgive those missteps was that there was a genuine understanding and belief that they actually cared about winning, and they actually cared about getting us higher. We had glory years, glory times under them. They've already proven that they cared. There was evidence behind the faith. But with Clearlake, there is no evidence. There is no nothing. There is no faith you can have in them anymore. So these guys had to come in swinging instantly. They're using the media to say how mismanaged, how poorly optimized Chelsea were. Coming in here when these guys to this day have not secured a sponsor deal 4 years deep. All this big talk in the media about, well, we know our value, we know our worth. We'd rather miss out on 2-3 years to bag that $6 million a year deal instead of taking that $40 million a year deal. But we look stupid right now because 4 years in, we could have had 160 M's. And how we got 0. And what even sums that up, not only are we just having a high turnover rate with managers, but the business directors this club keeps on hiring. I think we're like 3-4 man deep in right now, because there's no motion with what we're doing in terms of big commercial deals. There's all these little side projects and wasting time in crypto, this and nonsense that. And then on top of that as well, the thing that entrusted Roman Abramovich into your hands to begin with was the plans for the stadium. And there's no motion, there's no movement whatsoever with stadium plans. You chew too much than you could afford to eat. Your eyes are too big for your mouth. This is the mistakes you make when you want to rush years and years of process into 1 year. We did not have to be in this position. Nothing had to be rushed. And it just keeps them displaying this narrative that the only reason behind this, outside of naivety or arrogance, are we being used to facilitate the consortium because they want to see a return on their money, no? And yet again, it's led to a moment where fans are having enough. And I have to say, shout out to the fans, shout out to Pice, and all you guys who care, there's going to be another planned protest. It's planned for the 17th of January. It's a protest against Egbali and the sporting directors. It's planned for the 17th of this month. As he says, Chelsea supporters are encouraged to come together in unity for a peaceful protest on the model and strategy, in particular Bedad Egbali and CFC sporting directors. You guys are seeing it on screen. There was going to be a link as well in the description. Read it for yourselves. And this is actually a protest I can support and get behind. The last process felt like practice to just see how we could organize something. But if you guys remember, I thought it was misguided. And my main concern with it at the time is that you're not putting criticisms where it should be directed. And that is the ownership. That is on the direction. Put pressure on the transfer strategy, the recruitment stuff. This time, people have learned. People have seen it for their own 2 eyes right now. It feels like the issues have become 4K to everyone collectively in this fan base right now. And it seems like this is a more focused, organized protest, which I think is needed now. Because we have to let these guys know, these strangers know, by the way, who had no connection to this club beforehand. They're just symptomatic of The itches we see across the world of anytime you're a billionaire, you got money, you can buy up anything you want at a whim, no matter disregarding every tie to that thing you're buying, yeah? Make it your thing and absolutely bastardize it. We don't want to see that happen to our football club, yeah? So you guys know what's happening on the 17th right now. I feel like that's everything I have to say on the matter. It's a long video. It's taken me a lot of time to think about things. I've recorded this video so many times. I felt like it wasn't really hitting right, or I was forgetting things. It wasn't landing how I wanted to, but I feel like, I literally feel like now, yeah, this could be the video. So you guys get involved in the chat, share your thoughts and opinions. And that's everything I have to say on what the hell is going wrong at Chelsea Football Club.